Hello, welcome to another Orion Tech Tips video. I have not been doing a recent sit down and talk about upcoming tech for quite a while. I know I've just been doing video games, but I just want to take a break from that and I want to see how good this video does. If it gets a few views, I'll do something like this again, but if not, I'll just go back to iPhone games, just see how it goes. Anyway, I want to talk about the new RTX cards in this video. So obviously the RTX 2080 Ti, the RTX 2080, and the RTX 2070 are the ones out currently. The rest have not been released yet. I don't really know when they'll be released, honestly. But anyway, I want to talk about both of them, and are they worth it? Well, let's find out, basically. I know that, the big feature is, besides, the power it gives you, is ray tracing, but I also know it cuts performance somewhat significantly. So anyway, I just want to talk about them. Basically, the RTX 2070 is, you can find it as low as $500. The RTX 2080, I think it was $700-ish, and the RTX 2080 Ti is $1,200. That's sort of expensive, but okay. Anyway, so for the similarities is they're all using GDDR6 video RAM. Is something that we didn't really see with the Pascal 10,000 series cards, but in terms of performance, they somewhat significant. The RTX 2070 and 2080 both have 8 GB of the same GDDR6 memory. And the 2080 has 11 GB of that same video RAM. And then in terms of TDP, I believe it's 250, 200, and 175. So 250, 215, and then 200. So, yeah, anyway, so, basically, the GPU cores for the 2080 Ti is 4,352 GPU cores, and for the 2080 it's 2,944 GPU cores. How that would it for it would really you would see it they're both really powerful cards, but if you know I'm guessing most of you, well, all of you guys watching this video probably don't have a 4K 144Hz monitor, but if you did, you would definitely see quite a big jump in that regard. But anyway, base clock is 1350 megahertz, and then 1515 megahertz, and then boost clock is 1635. versus 1800 megahertz. Yeah, so basically, that's just, like, all of the, and then, 352 bandwidth for the RTX 2080, and, 256-bit bandwidth, sorry, for the, 2080 versus the 2080 Ti. If any of you, like, care about that. In terms of performance, for example, now, I haven't really tested these cards, but something that, like, would take advantage of ray tracing, for example, with ray tracing on at, like, 4K, Ultra, Assassin's Creed Unity, which is the new Assassin's Creed game, just came out. The RTX 2080 would get 29 frames, and the RTX 2080 Ti would get 63 frames per second. And this is with everything completely maxed out, ray tracing on, 4K Ultra maxed out. So, yeah, yeah, and then another game that does support ray tracing is, Battlefield 5, few more. For example, let's take, like, a lower end AAA, like, a older AAA title, like Battlefield 1, for example. At 4K Ultra settings, the RTX 2080 would get 90 frames per second, and the RTX 2080 Ti would get 112 frames per second. So that's, like, higher numbers because, well, older game. And then let's take the most, well, I guess it's not the most graphically intensive game anymore, but, like, when it came out, it really was. Crysis 3. No, actually, Crysis 3, like, that's one of my favorite games. I really like that game. If you haven't played it, it is too much fun. Just play it. Anyway, so the RTX 2080 at 4K completely maxed out would get 52 frames per second, and the RTX 20 Ti would get 73 frames per second. Now that's an older AAA title, but it's still quite demanding. The, like, the 2080 doesn't get about 60 frames per second. You could change that if you change it from ultra to high. You would get over 60 frames per second, but some people are okay with that, some people aren't. Far Cry 5 is another game that is just amazing, another AAA title. I think I actually highly enjoy that game too. So the RTX 2080 would get 67 frames per second, and the RTX 2080 Ti would get 85 frames per second, and again, 4K Ultra. So those numbers are actually higher than Crysis 3. God, this is such a demanding game, but the physics engine it runs on, I believe, if I remember off the top of my head, I think it's CryEngine, I believe. Anyway, another game is Ghost Recon Wildlands that I know a ton of people enjoy that game. That game is honestly ultra, and it's the only game that I've really played where ultra and high, like, they always make a pretty big jump, but, like, with this game, like, the RTX 2080 at Ultra 4K gets 37 frames per second, and the 2080 Ti gets 45 frames per second. But if you lower that to high, like, I guarantee, like, it would be double the frame rate. Like, even, like, on something like a 1050 Ti, it doesn't really struggle that bad if you lower the decel, but on Ultra, like, that game just, kills the performance. But I will say it looks it looks stunning. And at 1080p, if you're wondering, ultra detail at 60 frames per second, you actually do need a GTX 1080 Ti, which would be equivalent to like an RTX 2080. Well, a little bit lower, but yeah, basically, yeah. And then Rise of the Tomb Raider, I have completed that game and it is, again, amazing. At ultra detail, the RTX 2080 will get you 81 frames per second versus 98 frames per second on the 2080 Ti. Again, lower the high, and if you have a high refresh rate monitor, it will actually get you the high refresh rate that you want, basically. I would like to make a comment of Res the Tomb Raider. I actually want to give it credit for running on a pretty good wide array of hardware, and it still looks like really amazing. And for example, like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, it also looks good, but it doesn't run as well as Rise of the Tomb Raider. Like Rise of the Tomb Raider, as long as you have like a decent graphics card, decent CPU, it will run on 8 gigabytes of RAM, but Shadow of the Tomb Raider, it really won't. Speaking of Shadow of the Tomb Raider, performance at 4K ultra detail for the RTX 2080, it is 42 frames per second, and the RTX 2080 Ti, it is 55 frames per second. So yeah, in terms of the Witcher 3, it is 58 frames per second on the 2080 versus 76 on the 2080 Ti. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, I know people aren't really a fan of that. Personally, I didn't really see a problem with it. Yeah, but anyway, on the 2080 you can get 89 frames per second, and on the 2080 Ti you can get 113 frames per second. So I wouldn't, if you had a 4K 144 hertz monitor, which again, a lot of people don't, it's really expensive, but if you do, I'd recommend buying the 2080 Ti because of that performance jump. In terms of Final Fantasy 15 on the 2080, you will get 42 frames per second, and on the 2080 Ti, you will get 53 frames per second. So basically, hopefully you get an idea of the performance that you will get if you do want to pick up something like, say, an older generation GTX 1080, or 1080 Ti, or even like a 1070. They are actually gone down quite a bit in price. Like, I have seen some used GTX 1080s for like $300, and that's like 1060 price. So that is, and a 1080 is still a great performing card. So yeah, that's really all I want to say. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, follow my Instagram, and yeah, turn notifications to get videos just like this. Comment if you want to see more stuff like this, and if this video gets a few views to make me, like, feel like it's a good use of my time making another video like this, I will. Thank you so much. Peace out.